we've always existed. We're in every culture, one way or another. Sometimes we're sacred. Sometimes we're just ordinary. And in fact, the being ordinary is maybe the hardest thing. It's will the world just let us be ordinary? Like, could that be? Is that too much to ask? To speak for myself, I want to sort of stay in my lane a little bit, which is what the possibilities and dangers are for a trans woman in the United States. There's not just the transphobia, there's the transmisogyny. There's a sort of a specific kind of attack going on that follows on our visibility, which turns out to have been a trap. Like the whole idea that, yay, we'll just be like, visible as liberal rights-bearing subjects, the same as any other. Whereas before we've been a little bit, no one really knew who we were. But being visible has turned out to be a bit of a trap, and it's made us vulnerable to all sorts of, not just legislative attacks, but just everyday attacks. Like, I don't know if you're hearing it, but just violence and aggression towards sisters is just a thing, yeah? Like, do you feel that?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I'm certainly early in my transition, and like we were talking about earlier, today's my first time in Manhattan with a beat face in a little outfit, like in the sunlight, and I was just picking up on, I guess the way glances hang, which obviously is not a very big issue compared to the violence that so many other people face, especially like trans women of color.
I'm sorry this was the moment you're like walking around, like,
even
like putting face on and walking around. It's like, like even just 2 years ago would have been like a little easier.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I will say which is definitely one of our shared interests, the spaces where I've been most comfortable and most able to present relations to femininity has been in the club space, the rave space. So that's nice. I can't be, I mean, I don't know if it feels like there's an energy here right now that in the nightlife scene that isn't, I don't want to call it new, because how would I know, but is certainly delicious.
Yeah, and this is the thing I spent 5 years researching, was I went back to nightlife culture, which I think has always had little spaces for queer and trans and gender non-conforming people. It has particular ones now. And it's interesting to me that they're not even necessarily our spaces, right? But you can just be there and it's not a thing. It's not a trans majority universe necessarily. It's one where there's places in the night, in the city, where we just are. And people start to expect that and accept that. I don't know if it ever finds its way into daylight or the rest of the country or anything like that. But, we have our little time and place in the city.
Hope feels so like anachronistic for, I don't want to speak on behalf of my entire generation.
Generation.
Yeah, but for my generation.
Yeah. And
I was also thinking of the ways that like hope is kind of imbricated with like fantasies of like upward mobility that really, I feel like, don't resonate with most people I know.
Yeah.
Like, there's like vague abstract ideas of like, oh, we'll have like a home one day. I mean, maybe if like the ocean hasn't risen and like the world hasn't been eradicated by like warfare. So endurance, I think, is a really key word to describe the way I feel about, I guess, my continued movement through the world.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you phrase it like that.
Oh, thank you. I don't know who I got it from.
Yeah.
But endurance is one of our words, I think. Yeah. How do we maintain? And how is that maintaining a thing that we have to do together? Because nobody else really got our back. There's only each other. I'm now in my 60s, and if I'd come out at your age, I really don't think I'd be alive now. And that would have been a common assumption and expectation, is that if you came out young in the 80s and 90s, you just weren't going to live very long. And this is still the reality for a lot of trans women. Just don't expect to live very long, and often don't. that a full life is possible. Like, this is the thing that really kills me. It just started to be thinkable at this time where we now think that a full life might not be possible for anybody anymore. Like, it sort of has to be a bit realistic about the uncertainness of any future. So yeah, how do we think about enduring? And yeah, trans women have very particular skills and arts of doing that. And I feel like I learn a lot from being around that as someone who, by virtue of coming out late, got to be in the closet and have like a middle class life, have a career, I was allowed to have ambitions. It's so striking to me that for a long time, and still for a lot of trans women, you're not allowed to have ambitions, It's just about whether you're going to be there next week.
I mean, I've been thinking recently, it is Pride, and I'm thinking about Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, and I don't know what it means to think of them as like Black trans women that the entire LGBTQ rights movement is resting on, when it's like, what were they organizing for if not like the specificity of like housing and healthcare and abolition, which like in the liberal imaginary are, I feel like, certainly not included under whatever LGBTQ rights includes.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago that 15,000 people showed up at, almost 2 years ago to the day, 15,000 people showed up at the Brooklyn Museum for Black Trans Lives. And where an all Black trans roster of speakers said, we don't want to be figureheads for things in which we have no agency and where the money all goes to whatever white gays say it should go to. And sort of have to keep that faith a little bit, I think, of centering the leadership of Black and brown trans women and trans people in general. Because there's a way that, yes, here's Sylvia Rivera, here's Marsha P. Johnson, and here's the all white board of the organization who's putting their pictures on the website.
I mean, on that note, I laughed out loud walking here, passing the Citibank with the Pride flag.
Oh my God.
I was like, yes. You have my back, Citibank, thank you.
Yeah, there's like Pride cookies and you name it, it's kind of absurd. But I mean, underneath that is that sense that we do take this month to actually celebrate. It's just not going to be branded, just not sort of going to tell anybody where it is.
Yeah, you can live without hope, but with enjoyment.
Right.
Like, that is something I and my loved ones, that holds us together, is enjoyment. And that isn't proportionate to the event that is being enjoyed. Like, sometimes it really is taking your shoes off on the dance floor. And that can carry for days.